Hello and welcome to the Dits on Wrestling podcast, the Royal Navy's only pro wrestling pod. And we're mixing things up a little bit, something that we've never spoken about on this show before. We're going into New Japan Pro Wrestling, unspoken grounds as far as Dits is concerned, and coining it Noob Japan Pro Wrestling. Haha, very witty. And joining me on this noob-tastic adventure is Anthony, somebody who isn't a noob when it comes to New Japan. So it's quite a nice balance. So Anthony, of course, you are the co-host of the show. So hello.
Your Noob Japan line is more clever than the people on Twitter recognize, and more clever than you are giving yourself credit. I legitimately laughed out loud the first time you told me about it. I'm still laughing about it right now, but I'm trying not to let it ruin this intro here. I think it's very clever, and you deserve a pat on the back for it. And yeah, you are somewhat of a noob, but you've come into this with an open mind.
I have.
With an open heart, an open soul, much as I did when I first came into the world of New Japan many a year ago, and I'm very excited. It's good that you're getting into this. It's been something that we've spoken about offline and on some episodes, and you've stuck your toe in those waters from time to time, including potentially going to a Wrestle Kingdom during your days in the Navy, but that did not work out, and that, hindered you a little bit from really getting on that New Japan bandwagon. But Here you are, finally coming around, opening your mind, body, and soul to New Japan. We have an episode about it. I'm very excited. Uncharted waters for us.
It is. Yeah, I mean, with everything that's going on in the world in general, but specifically wrestling. This is a wrestling podcast, so we'll focus on that. Yeah, it's terrible. We touched on it in last week's episode. We're not going to spend too much time on it this time around. But yeah, we're in a pretty shit spot when it comes to wrestling, especially UK wrestling. Then now you've got the COVID stuff that's kicking off with WWE. So this New Japan starting again, and then me going, right, I'm going to actually delve into this, sign up for New Japan World, and just start watching it.
Yes.
It literally could not have come at a better time. New Japan saying, right, we're going to air the New Japan Cup. We just won't have any fans. And just going ahead and cracking on. The timing is fantastic.
Yes. It could not be better. And yeah, it's been a nice little... I'm a big sports guy, and obviously a wrestling guy, and it's been... I don't want to say this to sound insensitive, or make light of what's been going on, but it's legit been a rough couple of months. I don't know what to watch. It's not the same thing. It just adds to the already weirdness that's going on in the world. So to have, soccer started to come back a little bit, and now New Japan is back into the fold. It's a nice, even though there's no fans, it's a nice little taste of normalcy to start coming back and to start seeing. And the New Japan Cup has been very good so far, and it's a nice distraction from the shittiness that is the world, both wrestling related and non-wrestling related. And so, yeah, I echo that sentiment completely. It could not have come at a better time, and they have hit the ground running. And it's a good time to get into it's always a good time to get into New Japan, but especially now considering the landscape of the world and the wrestling community at large.
Yeah, I'm actually really annoyed at myself because I've maybe watched 6 New Japan matches this week, one of which we'll talk about in a little bit of depth, because it compares directly to the thing that I focused on throughout my entire wrestling fandom, WWE. And this isn't going to be a New Japan Cup review show. We'll touch on it a little bit from what we've seen. You've watched all the nights bar the 24th of June, and I've just watched a handful of matches here and there. So it's not going to be a full-on review. We're just going to talk about it in general. And I think the second round of matches I am actually going to delve into properly and fully commit to watching the whole thing from there. Nice. But as far as first thoughts go,
yes, give them to me.
With New Japan, I like the fact. I mean, it seems so obvious to say it, but it's such a big thing. It's just the freshness of it. Just some uncharted waters. Navy thing there. Even just going onto the New Japan site and it just being completely in Japanese and me going I have no idea what's going on. Obviously, you can change it to English. You got a nice little English tab up there, which is nice of them. But even just going through that and then just scrolling through their site and just listening to, because I initially selected and this is the match we're going to talk about in a minute. I selected AJ Styles versus Nakamura for the IWGP Intercontinental title. That's a Wrestle Kingdom, which I don't know the number of. I'm going to say 14. 10. Damn, 10.
Close.
It's 4 off.
Yeah, not bad.
I'm a noob, remember?
I've got Noob Japan. Noob Japan.
I like it. That's going to kick off every Noob Japan episode, which there's going to be a lot of probably going forward, which I'm sure you're ecstatic about.
I am fucking jacked as shit for that. Yeah.
But when I searched for that match, I listened to that whole thing in Japanese.
Oh, it's so much better.
I liked it. I was like, I don't know what. Every now and then, like they'd come out with something, I'd be like, oh, I know that word, but it's
lariat. They'll say lariat. You're like, oh, okay, lariat.
But it was just so nice to have like it added like authenticity to it, and I was like, I like it. It's really nice.
And there's so much more emotion in the Japanese commentary. Like it could be. Someone could just like give someone an Irish whip into the ropes, and they're just like, oh, and you're like, oh my god, like it just adds to the atmosphere and the ambiance of all of it. Yeah, I watch them, I flip back and forth. So for certain things, like I like to get the English commentary perspective, and like match analysis and things that further the storyline. But a lot of the times, I would say 60 to 65%, I go with the straight Japanese commentary because I love the way they present it.
Yeah, and
I don't know what the fuck they're saying, but I love it.
I think when I'm into it a lot more, I think that's when I'll make the actual shift towards just like, because I don't know how when you're streaming on New Japan World, do you actually get the stuff live, or is it all on demand after it's aired? So say like Dominion, do you get to watch that live via New Japan World?
Yes, you can if you want.
Okay.
I just don't do the conversion time of being I can't be up at like 2 or 3 a.m. and then watch it for like the 3-4 hours then it is, and then that'll wreck my regular life.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely do that. There's tons of people, especially if you follow like certain things on Twitter. A lot of people have been doing like getting up every day for the New Japan Cup. My buddy's one of them. My buddy gets up for the dude who I've gone to New Japan shows with here all across the United States. He watches Wrestle Kingdom live. He watches the G1 final live. Like so I'll wake up at like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever, and I'll see a text from him at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. being like, oh my God, this was amazing. No spoilers, but it was great. So if you want to and you're there to make the commitment, actually, it's probably easier for you because you're ahead. So if you wanted to watch it live, you 1,000% can do that.
I mean, if the events fall on a weekend, I mean, do they fall on a weekend, or is it kind of like a as and when usually. Deal? Yeah, good. So I'm usually up with the kids at 7 o'clock. So you're good. I could easily watch it. So hooray for Dits.
It's a regular day for you.
A regular day for me. But yeah, when I actually get into New Japan properly, I think Japanese commentary will be the norm. But it's been good having, especially with the New Japan Cup, and people are coming down to the ring, and just certain things are happening. I'm like, I have no idea who this person is. I have no idea what's going on. It helps having Kevin Kelly there to kind of help me, and I've actually really enjoyed Kevin Kelly's commentary at this point. Like it's very knowledgeable. It's not invasive. He focuses on what needs to be focused on. Like there's nobody in his ear. Like it's nice. I'll say it a lot during this episode. It's fresh. Mm-hmm. So I've enjoyed it, and I think one of the New Japan nights I put the Japanese on by accident. I just never turned it off because it doesn't bother me. But for the most part, I listen to Kevin Kelly's, and it's great. But like you, I preferred the Japanese when it came to AJ Shinsuke, because they were passionate as hell about that. I mean, I watched that on. We're recording this on Saturday. I watched that on Tuesday or Wednesday. So the match is starting to dampen in my mind because I don't have a lengthy memory bank, sadly. But I do remember that they were passionate about it. But on the flip side, something that I've really enjoyed as well is the fans. Like they have a respect for what is going on in the ring, and there's no. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is. I just don't know they're saying it. There might be "This is awesome" chants or anything like that. But if there is, they're fucking quiet, and I don't hear them. Like it's more like polite applause stuff.
Yes.
Like it's not in your face. It's respectful to what's going on. And
yes, it's the exact opposite of, like, I feel like American crowds now, especially, maybe not even just American, but I feel like non-Japanese crowds, especially in today's day and age, I feel like a lot of them are chasing that ECW crowd reputation, where, like, people have talked about it so much that, like, the crowd at ECW, like, enhanced the show, and they were the first ones to really, like, boo matches that sucked or chant things that, like, you can't wrestle, or really give, like, appreciation in a different type of way. And I feel like nowadays, especially being a person who's gone to so many shows, I feel like so many crowds try to get themselves over so they can be known as, like, a great crowd. And so they want to do cool chants. And I can't count how many times I've seen on TV or heard live people start "this is awesome" chants, or "this is wrestling," or "you deserve it," just for, like, whatever the fuck. Like, someone hits a DDT and they're like, "you deserve it." I'm like, what the fuck? That doesn't even apply here.
Yeah.
But the Japanese crowds, and again, it connects to the larger picture for New Japan for me. New Japan, wrestling in general for me, when it's at its peak, when it's what it's supposed to be, I will die on this hill. Wrestling is a fucking sport when it's done the right way. I don't care if it's scripted. I don't care if it's planned. I understand it's not an organic, random outcome. It is a sport to do what professional wrestlers do. And when you watch New Japan, it is a fucking sport. They train in the dojo for a reason. And when they are in the ring, it is precision and execution and realism, and it's a sport. And I think the fans, the fans understand that, and they have a respect for what the wrestlers are doing in the ring. They have an appreciation. If you ever look at the shots of people in the crowd, it's everything. You've got older couples, you've got young people with their kids, you've got businessmen in, like, suits just hanging out. Like, it's not like it's a certain subgroup of the country or a certain group of the community. It's just like it's interwoven into the fabric of the communities and who they are. And yeah, I love the way they appreciate it. And that's why when something really awesome happens, it's so cool to hear them pop or hear their reaction, because you know something great happened, because usually they're just like, oh, okay, good job. But when they cheer or they really get riled up or they boo or something like crazy happen, you know that it was worth it, because they're not there to be part of the show. They're there to just watch the show. And so when you get a reaction, it makes it that much more memorable.
Because I know for a fact that if we had that Wrestle Kingdom match between Shinsuke and AJ within WWE, like, it would be noisy. Like, it would be just, this is awesome, fight forevers, you know, all that kind of stuff would be going off. And it was
wrestling.
it was nice not to have that. And it was nice, just like, this is the Tokyo Dome. It's not a small place.
Nope.
And it was nice to hear, like, every bump on the mat.
Yes.
It was nice to hear AJ and Shinsuke talk. I don't know if it was, maybe there's mics around the ring, maybe not, but it was nice to hear, like, everything they were saying, especially AJ, because I knew what he was saying, but even, like, maybe just some stuff that Shinsuke was saying back, like, you could pick it all up. So I don't know. I don't know if there are mics around the ring, but
There are.
and they just happen to pick them up. But it was just nice to be able to hear that, and you don't have that crowd clatter that just overdoes it. And that's because that's something I've enjoyed with, I mean, we spoke about it on our WrestleMania review when we really had no crowds for the first time, and that was obviously on a grander scale. We love the fact that you could hear them trash talking each other and all that, because it kind of added stuff to it. And I felt that watching that, bearing in mind there's a lot of people in the Tokyo Dome, the fact that you could still hear everybody, I was like, that's a nice touch. I like it.
Yes. And you hear those, like, certain things happen, and you can hear the fans be like, when especially in that match, when it's sort of right off the get-go and in the beginning, and they're pulling off those different transition, and like AJ almost pulls a Styles Clash out in the first, like, 45 seconds. You can hear the fans be like, oh, like, you can hear their natural, like, roller coaster of emotions. And yeah, it adds to the atmosphere, and it adds to the realism and the seriousness of it. And at the same time, it enhances the in-ring aspect, like you mentioned, because you can hear all those fight aspects. So, like, you can hear them talking to each other and not talking to each other like hip toss or like clothesline.
Yeah.
But like actual, like they're in there making it seem as real as it can be, making it seem like it's the sport that it is. And the fans are there to enhance that just because of their respect and their admiration for it. And I think it's also a cool thing too when American fans go there or non-Japanese fans, they don't bring their like American style tendencies. Like they get into that crowd and they assimilate into that crowd to be like, okay, I need to sit here and kind of shut the fuck up and just watch some wrestling. I can't act like I'm in Chicago ready to just chant for whatever the fuck happens. Like they recognize the severity of it, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and like you said, they treat it as a sport, and again, it's fresh, which is nice. It's nice. But even going into, I mean, obviously moving away from the Wrestle Kingdom match, even in like the New Japan Cup side of things, even that is a nice little detour away from the WWE, the way the entrances are done, the fact that you've got I'm probably going to say, is it the Young Lions? It's not the Young Lions. Is it the Young Lions?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that I like the fact that the nice little touch that they've got them around the ring as if they're like there to, learn stuff and all that. It's just little stuff like that. The fact that there seemingly doesn't appear to be any DQs in New Japan.
Yeah, it's like kind of, but like kind of not. And it's the same thing with the countouts. Like sometimes there's countouts, but then also like sometimes not. The whole thing is it's always based up to the referee's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
So if he wants to start the count, he'll start the count. If he doesn't, he won't.
Because that's one thing I liked about the, I'm going to say Tanahashi Taichi match.
Yeah,
yes.
right. Good
Boom.
job. Well
there
done.
we go.
Well done.
Obviously, Taichi was being a prick. This is the first time I've ever seen this guy, and he was being an absolute prick.
That's what he is. His character is he's a prick.
And he was doing stuff outside the ring, like hitting him with chair and all that kind of stuff, and rolls him back in. The referee's like, I ain't fucking counting that.
Yep.
I liked that.
Discretion.
It was. I mean, I think AEW do that as well. But I remember I was just watching that. I was like, I love that. Like, why would if you're treating this thing as a sport, why would you count that? If there's going to be no DQs,
you just cheated. Yeah, I'm not counting that. You're a dick. Fuck that. I'm not counting that.
And on top of that, going with these chair shots and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know you hear about strong style and all this kind of stuff, but actually witnessing how much hard hitting New Japan is in comparison to what I've been used to. Oh boy, like there are some shots where I'm like, fuck.
Did one of the matches you saw, did you see Minoru Suzuki versus Yuji Nagata?
No, but I am aware of Suzuki and his hard bastard persona.
That match. They just slapped the fuck out of each other for like a good 2.5-3 minute transition, because it's basically just like going toe for toe to see, like, the whole match is just a hard hitting but also technical match, and it's them, like, neither one of them willing to back down to be like, I'm like tougher than you, and it's just stiff elbows and forearms to the neck and to the side of the face, slaps, like just good stuff, and you hear all of it. Mm-hmm. There's no like, they're not throwing punches it's just straight like, it's Suzuki. It'll be even better when there's a crowd. Suzuki does this thing because he lands his forearm shot so picture perfect on your like neck and collarbone area, right on like the meat of your neck, and it just makes this loud, impactful snap. He just lands it perfectly, his forearm and like the lower part of his tricep, and he'll quiet the crowd, and everybody will just get silent as if there's no one, and then he'll just lay in, and it's just, and you can hear it, and then the guy who takes it sells it, and that's what him and Nagata were doing, and that's exactly like that strong style, stiff type of realism, like they're on point, just beating the shit out of each other. That was arguably my favorite match of the New Japan Cup so far, and yeah, that was, and I wasn't expecting that out of that match, and that was that's what's so great. Like, I'm just watching two older wrestlers that I'm not expecting to have like my favorite match of the tournament, but they're two dudes I heavily respect and I do like and I do enjoy. And Nagata's got a storied past, and so does Suzuki, and they just come out and fucking do their thing. Like, they're not an embarrassment. They're not, and you don't think they're gonna steal the show or tear the house down. And that's just what New Japan is. Like, you go there for match 7, and then match 2 ends up being the match of the night, and then match 4 makes match 2 look like shit, and then the main event makes you forget about everything that happened, and then the show is done and you realize, like, oh man, I just saw a really good show, and I saw like 3 or 4 amazing matches, and then the rest that like weren't amazing were still very good in some respect. And yeah, I was wary of how they would come back. I didn't know what it would be like for them with no fans. I didn't know how I would feel about it with no fans. And then I slowly forgot that there were no fans, and I was just watching the sport, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, having no fans did. I mean, I think it was probably more because I was going into this fresh. So New Japan could have had never wrestling in front of fans ever, and that's what it would have felt like if I went in now. But it didn't bother me in any way, shape, or form because I didn't know any better. But we've had situations with WWE and NXT, and I think did AEW do it without crowds for 1 or 2 shows maybe. I don't know. I just got used to it. So coming into it, not an issue. But I love the fact that I mean, it's not really the wrestling side of things, but it just shows that they're fucking taking things seriously. The fact that they spend a good 10 minutes disinfecting the fucking place.
Yes.
I like that, and I like the fact that you can see them doing it, so you know they're not doing a botched job. Like, they fully go fucking full into it. It's not just like half-assed. I'll squirt half the rope. They fucking squirting all the way down the rope, all the way, and then all the way back up again. Like, it's good to see that they're taking. Yeah, discipline. It's good to see they're taking it seriously. But there's just so many little things that I was just like, I know I'm going to be a fan of New Japan going forward. I'm not going to be stepping away because we obviously have done an AEW episode before, and I was like, I'm going to stick with it. I haven't stuck with it. I've watched probably 3 shows since we did the AEW for Dummies episode, and I'm keeping up with the results, but not watching the shows. Mm-hmm. But with New Japan, like, I want to watch every night of this New Japan Cup, and I probably will watch every night going forward from round 2 to the final. I'm hooked. It is. Awesome. It has pulled me in, and even the very small comparison I had to WWE when I think, have I got his name? No, I haven't. Yano? Is that his name? Yeah, was chasing Matey Boy around with a set of hair clippers. Yeah, I was like, that's. I was like, that's maybe something WWE would pull, but. And the way he was selling it on the ramp when he was coming down to the ring and everyone's entrances, and he was just there fucking cowering and shaking and all that shit. I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. Apparently he was bullied as a young lion or something.
Yano's whole thing is like just his, like, he's the comedic aspect. I actually think in real life, I think he's like a legit MMA, like, black belt. Like, he's a legit real fighter. He's like very good. Like, you wouldn't want to fuck with him. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of these guys are in some respect, but he is pure like comedy and just like gets the crowd, fired up with just like his jokes and his antics. But he always pulls off some kind of victory or some kind of win somewhere. He does it in the G1. He's in the G1 like every year. He never wins, obviously, but he loses most of his matches, but he'll pull a victory out of his ass against one of the top dudes just with some kind of tomfoolery or fuckery, and it's just done in a clever enough way that you're like, that's funny, and it serves a purpose, and he does his job, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and it didn't really bother me in this sense, having something that, I don't know, you could see. I'm interested to see, actually, if they pulled that on WWE, what would people say?
They'd probably shit all over it.
Yeah. But I like the fact that, having listened to Kevin Kelly, he told me the story about, what happened before when, I'm terrible with names. I really am. Who's the guy who was tormenting?
Oh, I don't know. I skipped through that.
Whoever it was, he was a young lion. Told the story of how he was bullying him and all that kind of stuff. Revisited it. I mean, apparently he shaved his head or something, so obviously having the hair clippers was quite a good piece of continuity. And the fact that they had a match the following night in the first round, and he was, playing mind games, all that kind of stuff. I liked how it fed into that. So it wasn't just a random fucking segment. It actually fed into a grander thing.
Larger picture. And that's one of the good things you'll see. Like, there's always a longer like Gato, who does the booking, I really feel like he books like a year and a half in advance. Like everything serves a purpose. Even Sho and Shingo, who had a phenomenal match, their first real face-off was last year during the Best of Super Juniors, and they've had several other matches with each other in different tag team formats and different pay-per-views and shows and stuff. And it's always been like Shingo's always been like the foil for Sho, and Sho is like a young, like junior heavyweight, like but who's strong and in the same kind of mold or like, I guess type as or yeah, mold is the right word. Is in the same mold as Shingo, and Shingo just always beats the shit out of him and gets the win. And so for Sho to get the victory against him in this one, it connected back to their match at Best of Super Juniors in 2019, where like Sho almost pulled it off, but Shingo got him in the end and just beat the shit out of him at the end. Like it was, again, it's all like things always tie back. Naito's victory at Wrestle Kingdom 14 was, which is this past Wrestle Kingdom, was it was all storyline driven. The match was good in and of itself, but it was all, the match was just callbacks to failures that he had before he had the Tranquilo gimmick, and then even callbacks to when he first had the Tranquilo gimmick, and all the different failures and successes that he had leading him up to this past Wrestle Kingdom were all told in his journey to Wrestle Kingdom, and then told within that match to main event night 2. It was like, it's just exactly what you said, that continuity. There is no like, oh, these two fought last week, but now they're going to be a tag team because we don't think you remember what happened last week because you're stupid. So fuck no. Like everything means something. They will do things that connect back to something that happened 6 months ago, 2 months ago, a year and a half ago, and they reward the viewer for paying attention to detail because they will do things in a match, whether it's a move or a cadence or a transition or a certain callback. They will do things that reward the viewer and connect that story for you, and it just enhances the in-ring work that much more.
I'm glad you said that because there's so many times I noticed that when Kevin Kelly was talking, he would be like, "Oh, these two faced like 7 years ago in the G1 or in the or Tenzan's lost every single New Japan Cup match he's ever first round he's ever been." Like there's so many stats going on, nothing's forgotten. Like everything is in the books. Nothing's. I mean, we know WWE. Oh, yeah, never happened before. Asuka's never had a last woman standing match. Yes, she has.
Yep. She just did it yesterday on a different show. We just watched it.
There's none of, well, what seemingly from what I've seen, there's none of that. So
no, because they treat it like again, like it's a sport. Like everything is. That's why they have like tournaments and cups, because it's all about that that realism feel, and they track it. They don't do like what AEW does, where they throw like a stat sheet up or like a card up on the screen to show you like a stat or whatever. But yeah, they tell you like so-and-so hasn't beaten so-and-so ever, or so-and-so has never won a New Japan Cup match, or so-and-so and so-and-so used to train in the dojo together and then they went their separate ways and blah, blah, blah. That's why this match is even, more intense, because there's the emotional aspect. They do a very good job and of connecting all that. And that's why the English commentary is so good. I like Kevin Kelly. I prefer the Japanese, not because I dislike Kevin Kelly in the English one, but just because I think the Japanese one is fantastic from the emotion aspect. But as someone getting into it, watching the English version is so good because, again, it paints you that picture so you have an understanding of what's going on. Like, oh, shit, like, that move just happened. Or if there was a crowd, like, you would see the crowd react in a certain way, and you might be like, damn, why are they cheering so hard for that? That looked like a basic, like, chop or like a regular like backdrop. Why do they care? But Kevin Kelly will tell you why that was significant or why you should care, and then you're like, oh, okay, and then it connects you to what's going on, and it's great.
Yeah, and it's honest commentary as well, because I think it was in the Tanahashi match he mentioned how he's a lot older and he isn't necessarily as good as he used to be, but he still picks up big wins when it matters. And in WWE you won't get any of that. It's just a case of they're there now. It's not, he's, unless it's part of a storyline where they happen to lose all the time, you don't get that aspect. So even that was refreshing. Now, I mean, we've been talking about New Japan. We're doing things backwards by going to the New Japan Cup, but we'll head the other way and go back to AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. Ooh. And I know you have some things to say, and I have some things to say as well, having heard the hype of their Wrestle Kingdom match. I'd never seen it up until this week. I've seen GIFs of certain moves, certain moments, like when AJ does the Bullet Club thing and Shinsuke eats the bullet.
Yes.
I've seen that so many times in GIF form, but I've never seen it within the match watching it. So all that was cool. But it was hyped up to the hills when we said, we're going to have this match at WrestleMania 34, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about the WWE match, the first one. And I'm going to put that down to it being not amazing.
Yeah, it sucked.
And neither were the next 10 matches in a row they had. But then having watched this Wrestle Kingdom match, just one match that went for maybe 20-ish minutes, maybe a little bit more. It's completely superseded you can write off anything that WWE put together. That is the benchmark, and it's obvious that is the standard. And it's a shame that they couldn't replicate that, because it could have so easily have been done. Because it's not moves that they're not capable of doing anymore or anything like that. It just seems so odd to me that you can have this standout match in Japan, but then not. I'm not saying copy it move for move and tell the exact same story, because there's no need to do that. But you've got two guys who have great chemistry together, but they just can't get that. I mean, it's not like it's just they had one try and it just didn't go well and nothing ever came of it. They had 4 or 5 matches against each other to hit the right notes, and not once did they do it. I just don't understand how it just didn't translate.
And that's what is... I've had several moments in my WWE fandom that have not pushed me over the edge, but like I'm just very realistic in my viewpoint of things, and I've thought WWE has sucked for a very, very long time. And the last chance that I really gave them was AJ versus Nakamura at WrestleMania. And I discussed it on my pod, and I discussed it with friends offline, and we really thought, I convinced myself that WWE would want to shit on New Japan a little bit, or at the very least just be like, these two are capable of doing great things. Here's 24 minutes. Go out and just do some great wrestling. And because I had this Wrestle Kingdom match in my brain, I really thought like they could. I don't think they were going to top it, but I thought they would do something great. And this is my I'm getting mad. This is my problem with WWE, is because they take everyone. They take their uniqueness. They take what they're great at. They take what they can do, and they put it into their WWE box, and they take away people's greatness. They take triangular shapes and mash the fuck out of them into a square hole until that triangle becomes a square. And then all you have is a bunch of squares, and that's all you fucking get. That match at WrestleMania fucking sucked. I'm still mad at myself that I allowed myself to believe it. I'm mad at my fucking friend. Yeah, Alex, I'm fucking mad at you for me allowing you to convince me that they would have anything other than a stupid fucking shit match at WrestleMania. Like, I know you're listening. Fuck you, Alex. He's not. But, like, they just wouldn't let them do it, and they were so capable of it. And I went back and I watched the AJ and Nakamura match from Wrestle Kingdom in preparation for this. And it was just so much nostalgia for me in that moment, because that was you and I talked about it before we started recording the episode. At that time, there were the rumors that AJ was going to WWE, and it was nothing confirmed, but everybody for the most part was pretty confident that this would be AJ's last New Japan Wrestle Kingdom, or New Japan pay-per-view period. And lo and behold, the next day at New Year's Dash, he was kicked out of Bullet Club, and then he debuted at Royal Rumble later that January. So there was that aspect. And I remember watching this match, and it wasn't confirmed yet. And I still remember when he hit Nakamura in that Styles Clash, and he hit it, but he didn't have both arms hooked behind the legs. He only hit him with one. And I can still think about it. And the ref counted, and he got to like 2 9/10. And because I did not think AJ was going to win, because I was hearing the rumors. I was like, he's going to go to WWE, whatever. And I really didn't want him to. It was breaking my heart. And the reason was because AJ has survived it somewhat in WWE, but I knew they were going to, he's a triangle, and I knew they were going to make him a fucking square. And I didn't want him to go. And when I really thought he was going to win. And then Nakamura kicked out, and I was like, fuck, Nakamura's going to win. AJ's out. And so it brought up so much emotion I remember watching that Wrestle Kingdom. I remember that match, and it's just so good. It starts out right from the beginning with the different transitions and counter for counter. AJ almost gets the Styles Clash in like the first minute of the match. They just move after move and counter after counter. They know each other so well. There's no botches. There's no mistakes. Everything is fluid. It's just that match there is the epitome of wrestling being a sport. You cannot watch that match and tell me like, oh, that's fucking scripted. Like, fuck you. Like, that shit was awesome. And they just put on a clinic. And it's so disappointing that they weren't allowed to do that. Like you said, like, they fought each other like 75 different times in WWE. And not once did they come close to anything like that. And you know that they were so capable of it based on what they did. And, yeah, that was... I recognize all the iterations of the Bullet Club. I much respect to Finn Balor / Prince Devitt's version as the originator. I'm a big Jay White guy, so I love what Jay White has done with Bullet Club. But the AJ Bullet Club will forever be my favorite Bullet Club. And AJ came out with the skull, with the Bullet Club mask on, the leather jacket. Every time AJ wore the white pants, that was like prime time, like big moment AJ. And Nakamura, of course, coming out and does his thing. And even that, like, that's a great match. And you and I did an Intercontinental title match or a belt talk about episode on this pod, and we talked about how the Intercontinental title in WWE has lost its way and the prestige that it used to have. And what match are we talking about? AJ versus Nakamura for the Intercontinental fucking title. Because at that point, Nakamura and AJ were two of the top 3 wrestlers in the world. It was Okada, AJ, and Nakamura. You could flip AJ and Nakamura depending how you want, or you could put AJ or Nakamura number 1, but they were 2 out of the top 3 dudes in the world. And what belt were they fighting for? The fucking second most important belt. And they put on arguably the match of the night, one of the best matches that company has ever seen, and it was fantastic. And I'm so glad that when we were talking about this, it was like, hey, what do you want to do for the episode? What do you want to talk about? And you were like, I figured we could talk about AJ Nakamura. I was like, yes! Like, let's talk about that, because it was so fucking great. And its greatness is only matched by the disappointment that their feud and matches were in the WWE.
I couldn't have actually pictured a better match to kind of transition in, because they're 2 WWE stars now, so I'm familiar with them. But then, like we've said, they're these triangles fitting into square holes, and it's just not clicking. Like you said, AJ has kind of dodged a lot of the WWE way of just completely ruining anything that made you special in the first place. Nakamura, on the other hand,
fuck.
Yeah, even towards the back end of his NXT run, he started to lose a little bit of momentum, and then came. I mean, I think you know what did it for me and Nakamura was the moment he started being called a rock star and the artist. That's when it.
Yeah, they ruined his whole fucking thing.
Like, just leave it. I mean, fair play to NXT and Triple H. They kept him as the King of Strong Style.
Yep.
They maintained that. Good stuff.
Yep.
Main roster, you are now a rock star. You are now an artist.
You're a triangle.
In fact, you're an artist known as Shinsuke Nakamura. Like,
stupid.
Go away.
Because he was a triangle and he had to be made a square, and that's what and that sucks. And my thought for you, or a question for you, what's it like seeing? Because I remember the first New Japan show I ever saw. It was a Wrestle Kingdom, and I remember being blown away by what I was seeing, because I hadn't seen wrestling like that before. I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on here? This is amazing. So what was it like to see that in this match, but also at the same time see this kind of match from 2 people you hadn't seen wrestle like this before? Like, you'd seen AJ and Nakamura wrestle and have it be underwhelming. What was it like for you to see them wrestle in this type of form and fashion in New Japan?
It was, I mean, I don't know if it's just me being skeptical or, whatever, but I always feel that every wrestler, it doesn't matter who you are, every single wrestler in WWE is shackled in whether it be because of booking, whether it's because of a gimmick they've been given, whatever way WWE wants the fans to react to them, whatever it is, they're shackled in some way, shape, or form. And that doesn't mean that great matches but fantastic 5-star matches, whatever, don't happen in WWE, because they do. AJ's had those. He's had them against John Cena, for Christ's sake. But they're just so little and not often enough. That's the problem. Whereas the first match, I mean, granted, I was aware of how good it was before I died. It's not as if I just press random and I go, oh, fucking hell, there you go, 5-star classic. But it was the first. It was the first match I watched, and it just so happened to be AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. I can only remember one amazing Nakamura match in WWE, and that was the first one he had against Sami Zayn.
Oh, good match.
Which is amazing. It's one of my favorites. It's in my top 10 matches. I love that match. AJ Styles, I remember, plenty of matches. Seth Rollins, Money in the Bank last year. His Cena matches. I think he had some great ones against Roman Reigns. Like I could. Yes. He's got so many. But I don't. I feel like part of him is shackled, and to see him, the gloves are off. And especially with Shinsuke Nakamura, like, the charisma running through that guy, like, he's still got his passion, he's still got his heart, which I think is something that he's lacking, really, at the moment. Like, you're in the tag division now with Cesaro, and that's no slight on Cesaro, because I love that guy, but you're in a tag team division now when you should be up there. You should be fucking top of the card. If you're not top of the card, you're hovering close to top of the card, somewhere up there, somewhere in the vein of exactly his position in New Japan, where he is the Intercontinental title, but it fucking means something. Not the Intercontinental title reign he had in WWE, where he defended it once in 3 months or something like that. It was like, there's a comparison for you. The Intercontinental Championship reign in New Japan and the Intercontinental Championship reign in WWE, it fucking pales in comparison. But to see the shackles off in this match, I knew how good it was going in. In fact, I knew it was down as one of the greatest matches ever, and I didn't go into it. I didn't leave that match going away disappointed. Like, it lived up to the hype.
And that's a big thing, because you can have expectations for something, and when something gets, like, it's not even a discredit to things sometimes, but if you get built up, like, anything like, oh my god, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life, dude, it's so good, you gotta see it, you got it, and everybody's telling you how great of a thing it is. When you go to see it, just because it's been built up so much, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to underwhelm in some regard, because you've been told how amazing it is. So the fact that you knew that of this match and still came away impressed says something so much to me about the quality of New Japan. And I think the shackle thing is very legitimate. I've said it before, and I always get shit for it, especially from my friends who like WWE, because they're like, oh, it's such like a backhanded compliment, or like, here we go. But a good WWE match is nowhere good enough compared to a good New Japan match. Like, AJ's best WWE match is nowhere close to his best New Japan match. They don't compare. Like, it's just different. A 5-star WWE match today is not as good as a 5-star New Japan match, for me personally. It's just the style, the way it goes, and again, it's that shackle piece. And if you need any more proof, you or the listeners, anybody, I think Hulk Hogan sucks as a wrestler. Watch Hulk Hogan wrestle the Great Muta at Wrestling Dontaku 1993. Hulk Hogan in New Japan wrestles. He's pulling off drop toe holds and smooth transitions. He's telling a story in the ring. He pulls off shit that I had no idea he was capable of. Granted, he's wrestling against a Great Muta, who's fantastic. But even, like, Hulk Hogan in WWE. I never liked Hulk Hogan as a kid. I thought he sucked. I thought the leg drop was stupid. I thought the big boot was dumb. I thought he was weirdly tan. I didn't like him. New Japan, he works. He's got work rate. Like, even in that's how great New Japan is, that Hulk Hogan is a good wrestler. And I'm not just saying that to, like, make the comparison or just to, like, give a hot take. Watch that match. He fucking goes. It's impressive. It totally made me rethink how I saw Hulk Hogan. New Japan, exactly to your point, Dits, like, the shackles are off, and they put you in a spot to succeed because they let you succeed. If you can go, and if you can wrestle, and you know what you're doing, you can go there and you can succeed. Juice Robinson is a perfect example. He was CJ Parker in NXT. He fucking sucked. No disrespect to NXT. He went, reshaped himself, honed his craft in New Japan, and now he's in a fantastic run. Like, they train you and put you in a spot that, again, because it's a sport, like, and they let you have that freedom and they put you in a position to succeed. And if you're a triangle, they're going to let you be a triangle. If you're a square, they'll let you be a square. If you're a circle, they'll let you be a circle. They're not going to mash you or fit you into a New Japan style. They're just going to let you wrestle. They're going to let you be a part of the sport, and they're going to put you in that position to succeed. And they do that with everyone, from Hulk Hogan back in the day to what you see now. And that was, like, my biggest takeaway from that match, because I hadn't watched the AJ Nakamura match in a long time. And in fact, up until today, I believe I've only watched it twice up until now. I saw it when Wrestle Kingdom 10 first came out, and then I watched it like a couple years ago. Every once in a while, I just watch like random matches. And it's just, yeah, it's breathtaking to see what they're able to do. And especially when you compare it to what they're doing now. Especially for all the people, think about all the people like who heard like Nakamura was a big deal, or who all their friends told them like, yo, like, wait till you see this dude, he's fucking awesome. And then he comes to the main roster and he fucking sucks. Like, yeah. And they're like, wait, the dude who's like punching people in the dick is like your awesome wrestler that was supposed to be like great. Like, it's just night and day. And it's disappointing to go back and see that, because I wish they were still there. I understand why they went to WWE, and I understand the lifestyle it provides and the money, or Nakamura enjoys like living in California and surfing and doing all his stuff. But the fan in me who like wants to see good wrestling, it still breaks my heart that they ever left New Japan, because it's so sad to see them go from. And again, maybe they're not always chasing that, especially as you get older, you want like different things, and they're both closer in their 40s. Or I think AJ might be over 40.
Yeah, I think he's like 43, I think.
Yeah, actually, I think that's spot on. So I get it, but it's just, to me, anything that's, and no disrespect to AEW, NXT, MLW, Impact, Ring of Honor, anybody, New Japan is like the tops when it comes to like in-ring work. Like, there's a difference between being in like the Premier League and then being in like the second league. There's a difference between being in La Liga and being in the Segunda. And anything that is not New Japan, to me, is like minor league in-ring wrestling. Some are better than others, but especially WWE. Like, in-ring WWE, in my opinion, is like bottom of the barrel. And so that was like Nakamura and AJ leaving to go to like WWE still breaks my heart. It would be like if fucking Messi left to go play like pickup soccer in like Argentina parks on the weekend. I'd be like, why are you doing this? Like, there's so much better soccer that you could be playing. Like, why? And he's like, well, it's cool. I get to like, the park is like 2 blocks from my house, and I don't have to practice, and it's like mad easy. I'd be like, oh, okay. And they're going to pay me like $1 million a day. I'd be like, all right, I get it, but like, the fan in me is sad. Yeah, it's just night and day.
Yeah, and I think I'm not quite there yet, because I've only just started watching it, but I can certainly see where you're coming from, and so many other people are coming from as well. The hype for New Japan, and I knew it was there prior to going into it. It's met. It's not. In some cases, it has exceeded expectations as well, which is great, because I'm paying fucking money to them. So I'm glad. I'm glad that it has. And I'm. This is not me saying that I'm gonna turn my back on WWE, because I'm not. Like, I will always be a fan of WWE. I will always watch it every single week, especially NXT. But to be fair, I know NXT's under the WWE umbrella, but I kind of separate the two because it's so fucking different to Raw and SmackDown.
That's fair. I do that. I don't consider. I know it's under the umbrella, but I consider NXT like a separate entity. Again, like I
Yeah.
think NXT is the second best wrestling promotion in the world behind New Japan from an in-ring perspective and from what I enjoy. They're number 2.
But I think, before we start talking about quickly about the New Japan Cup, just kind of round that off. I mean, you obviously mentioned the dick punching, but if you're going to pair, in fact, the more I think about it, the more it just completely makes sense. If you're going to compare the Wrestle Kingdom match between Nakamura and AJ and the WrestleMania match between Nakamura and AJ, WrestleMania ended with Nakamura hitting AJ in the dick, whereas Wrestle Kingdom ended with a respectful fist bump between Nakamura and AJ Styles. That's the difference.
Oh, so disappointing. And then the next night, AJ's taking a bow in front of the crowd as he leaves. God, it sucks. I'm extremely intrigued from because my introduction into New Japan, I was at work, and this dude who ended up becoming one of my best dudes, he's one of my groomsmen in my wedding this year, but we weren't like close like that, like we are now at this point. But I was talking with another coworker about wrestling, and because at this point, this was like 2013, I believe, I had stopped watching I hadn't watched WWE in like 8-9 years. I was watching Ring of Honor. I knew about New Japan from the time I was like little, but I never really watched it, and I didn't really know how. And I was talking about wrestling, and I was talking about like my disappointment with it. And this dude who's grown to be one of my best buddies was like, "Oh, like you like wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this happened to be like we were talking about on like January 6th, and Wrestle Kingdom every year is January 4th, no matter what day of the week it is. And so he happened to be like walking by, and he was like, "Oh, you like wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, like I heard some of your conversation. What you should do is check out Wrestle Kingdom." And I was like, "Oh, isn't that like new?" I didn't even know. I don't even know if I said it right, but I was like, "Oh, isn't that like the Japanese like version of like WrestleMania?" And he was like, "Yeah, like I know you like," because I talked to him about wrestling briefly before, and he's like, "Yeah, it's got like," and he mentioned some of the dudes from Ring of Honor who I'd seen before, and I was like, "Oh, okay," but I never, again, like I wasn't as passionate as I used to be. And so I went home that night, and I watched Wrestle Kingdom, and was just completely blown away. But I went into it with like no expectations. He didn't tell me like, "Dude, it's amazing. It's going to be like the best thing you've ever seen. It's going to reinvigorate your passion for wrestling. It's going to change how you see it." I didn't go into it with anything other than having the Twitter for the podcast stuff. I am not a social media person, so I didn't have anything at this time, so I wasn't hearing anything like that. And so I went into it completely fresh in terms of like, "Oh, okay, like this dude says it's cool, like I hope it's cool." And then I went in and was like blown away. I didn't have any of the I had no expectations. I didn't think it was going to be great. I didn't think it was going to suck. I just went into it watching it being like, "Oh, okay, I'll see what happens." And I was floored by how great it was. So I think it's very like interesting and telling that you went into it or have gone into it with a certain level of expectation, because whether it's me or just people talking about how good it is, or even just people who like want to talk about how good it is so they can make themselves look like they know wrestling. Like you hear so much, like how it's so easy to go on Twitter the day of like a New Japan Cup match or during the G1 or during Wrestle Kingdom and having everybody like suck New Japan's dick and be like, "Oh my God, like this is amazing. This is wrestling. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, WWE sucks. This is the best, blah, blah, blah." Like exactly to your point, there is a certain level of expectation that New Japan carries with it because of what you hear through hearsay and through the grapevine. So I think it's really cool for me because your introduction into New Japan really and mine were like two different ones, but we both came away with pretty much like the same thought. But I went into it with no expectation, and you went into it with high expectations. And the fact that it still met your expectations is something that's like really, really, really cool for me to hear.
And I'm glad it did, because
how upset would you have been if you were just like, "Anthony, this sucks. I do not want to talk about this ever again."
And they've got my $7.99 or whatever the hell it translates to.
I can't believe you had me waste this $9 for this crap, Anthony. This sucks.
But I haven't watched the bad match yet. So I think I've watched 6 matches this week. So the AJ Nakamura match, and then everything else was New Japan Cup. So Zack Sabre Jr., Ibushi, Tanahashi Taichi, Yo versus Bushi, and Yoshihashi versus Tenzan are the matches I watched. And then the 8-man tag with Yano and the Hair Clippers.
Yep, there you go.
So they're the matches I've watched, and not one of them sucked. Not a single one.
And that's awesome. I skip through things sometimes. I hate Yoshihashi. I don't know why. I just hate him. I hate his face. I don't like his move set. So I skip pretty much every Yoshihashi match ever. So I recognize that there may be things that certain people aren't fans of, but there's something. I watched some of the Yoshihashi Tenzan match. But there's just like, that's awesome to hear that like there's not one match that you didn't like. And again, not everything's going to be like the best thing ever. You're not going to watch like the 8-man tags. The 8-man tags are a good example. Like they may not be like clinical, but they're there to present a story for what's going on. And you're going to see some cool moves or some cool transitions or a cool spot, but the match is there to further the story and further the narrative of feuds that are going on in that match. And that's what I like about it. There is a purpose to everything. You may see a match that like maybe it's not great from an in-ring perspective, but it can be great because it's going to enhance the match that you're going to see next week or that you're going to see the next night, and that's a cool thing to hear.
And that's why I love the like the double billing of having Zack Sabre Jr., Ibushi, and Tanahashi Taichi like back to back, because whoever that wins those matches then goes on to face the tag team partners of the person they just beat.
Yes,
little things like that. I really like, but I think out of all the matches that I did watch, AJ Nakamura aside, New Japan Cup wise, I think I enjoy the first one I did watch was Zack Sabre Jr. Ibushi, and I think that was the one I've enjoyed the most.
Oh, good. That's a cool one to see.
Because I just loved how technical Zack was, and I liked Ibushi's selling of of his knees, and they kind of hyped it up as well. I think they said. I think Kevin Kelly said something about it was either a G1 or it was a New Japan Cup previously where Ibushi like injured his ankle in round 1 and went all the way.
G1
and so there was that history of an injury there to his legs. Zack Sabre Jr. was obviously trying to capitalize on it, and he kept saying he always sold the fact that you're 1 or 2 moves away from the tide turning, and the match just ending. Doesn't matter who hits it because they're both knackered. Doesn't matter. Like, it's going to take 1 or 2 moves, bang, it's over. And that's exactly what Ibushi did. He hit 2 moves and bang, Zack Sabre Jr. out.
Caught him out of nowhere with it.
Yeah.
Caught him with that first knee and then hit him with the Kabagoye. That was a really I like that you like that match. Fun fact, Ibushi is my favorite New Japan wrestler. He has been since the first Wrestle Kingdom that I saw. He's my guy, and I hate Zack Sabre Jr. as like a character, which I'm supposed to, but he's so damn good in the ring, and he's suddenly become the only British wrestler that isn't like a piece of shit. So that's also good to see, and it's so awesome at the moment. It's awesome to see his like just pure joint manipulation. Like his style is just I was gonna say cool. Yeah, he can pull a submission out of anywhere. There was a sequence in the match in the cup against Ibushi. Sabre runs at Ibushi and like slides down. Ibushi jumps in the air to hit a double foot stomp into Zack's chest, but Zack catches his feet and turns it into an ankle lock, and then turns it into a single leg crab. So like Zack, so think about that from like and it happens in the span of like 2.5, 3 seconds. Zack goes to attack Ibushi. Ibushi counters Zack. Zack counters Ibushi's counter to his original move and puts him into a submission. Like that's fucking awesome.
And transitions into a second submission.
Yes,
as well.
And Sabre does that all the time. It starts out with like an armbar, and then it transitions to like an ankle lock, and then it transitions to like a surfboard, and then he somehow ends you up in like an octopus. And Sabre's so cool because he wins he wins so many matches with like roll-ups and these like stupid things that in WWE when it's like I'm used to things in WWE when someone wins with like a crucifix or a roll-up or something. It's like, oh my God, like shocking. But Zach, like, he folds you like a pretzel and puts you in a position where like you can't move and thus you can't kick out. Like his finisher is like ridiculous roll-ups and technical like he'll find a way to get you into a small package, but do it in a certain way where you can't kick out because he's using his body and leverage and momentum in addition to all the joint manipulation. Like I never thought I'd be entertained by someone working someone else's wrist for like 25 minutes in a match, but he fucking does it.
Yeah, I mean, an ankle lock to him, like he's got the ankle, but he's also straining the big toe.
Yes.
Like, I
mean,
mean,
he's talking shit while he's doing it,
yeah.
He's smirking, and he's like, "Oh, come on, you cock!" Or like he's always calling everybody cunts. He's such a dick.
That is the first C-bomb that's ever hit the DOWPOD.
Sorry. Thanks a lot, Zach. He's so my dream every time he always not dream, but like one of matches that I go to when I always see like things or people talk about like, oh, like especially on Twitter, it's so popular. Like one of the wrestling things is always like, oh, name one wrestler from, retired wrestler to wrestle somebody today. I've got several, but one of my like favorites and my go-tos is if Bret Hart could wrestle Zack Sabre Jr.
Ooh.
That would be just fantastic. Ooh. I would love to see that technical wizardry. I don't think there would be any slams it would just be pure counter, elbow lock counter, hip toss counter into like a leg scissor. Like it would just be so cool to see that. And yeah, that was a really good match.
And that was the first New Japan Cup match I watched. I think it was like night 2 or night 3, one or the other.
Yeah, I think night 3.
But that again, just like AJ Nakamura, that set everything into motion because then I had Tanahashi Taichi, which was just as good. And I know straight away that Taichi is a massive prick.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's all you need to know. Tanahashi is the ace, and he works out a lot and has a very good physique, and Taichi is a huge douche.
Even his entrance where he's miming the entrance song, I was just like, who is this asshole?
and he got the win.
Yeah.
He got the win.
And then beat him down afterwards as well. I was very confused. I was like, how is he paired with Zack Sabre Jr.? I was like, that's a very random. Obviously, it makes sense to people who watch New Japan, I'm sure, but I was just like, if I imagine Zack Sabre Jr. to go with anyone, it would be like Will Ospreay because they're countrymen, but
no, they hate each other.
But even like the way Taichi looks, the way Taichi wrestles, and then pairing him with Zack Sabre Jr., I thought that was a little odd. But then you had somebody with him at ringside.
They're all part of. So one of the things you'll see in New Japan is everybody's, for the most part, in some sort of stable. I know.
Obviously, I know about Bullet Club, but I know it's like Chaos was coming up. Los
Ingobernables de Japón.
That's the one.
Yep, that's Naito's crew. They're Bullet Club, and there's 3 main ones. So we'll start with the first. Like you have Chaos. Chaos is basically everybody that isn't, for the most part, it's pretty much like everybody that's not in Bullet Club or Los Ingobernables or Suzuki Gun. So Chaos, you've got Chaos, and then you've got another one, which is basically like everybody else that isn't in one of those main 4 that's kind of together. But Chaos isn't really like, they don't roll deep or roll or ride or die for each other. They're basically just there to fill like 8-man tag spots because they have some kind of allegiance. Mm-hmm. Los Ingobernables is a very real, like Naito, Evil, Sonata, Bushi, Shingo. Like they are ride or die for each other. That's what it is. They, in my estimation, have overtaken Bullet Club as like the most popular group in New Japan.
I think Kevin Kelly said that as well. He said like merch wise and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they sell a lot. You'll see, and they're a heel group, but you'll see little kids with like the Naito teddy bear that has Los Ingobernables on it. You see a lot of like girls, dudes wearing like Los Ingobernables, and a lot of it is because of Naito. But the group as a whole, especially with Hiromu Takahashi, like their group is legit. At one point, they held like the majority of the titles. Like Sonata and Evil were the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Champs. Naito had the Intercontinental title. Hiromu Takahashi had the Junior Heavyweight. Like they do very good. Then you have Bullet Club, and then you've got Suzuki Gun, which is Minoru Suzuki, Taichi, Zack Sabre Jr. Basically, like all the pure. Lance Archer was in it. before he came to AEW. It's basically, and they're just pure. Los Ingobernables is like the cool bad guys. So like you want to root for them, but they also do disrespectful stuff, but you look past it because they're cool. Bullet Club is Bullet Club, but they're kind of being more straight bad guys now. And then Suzuki Gun, like nobody really likes anybody in Suzuki Gun. They're just pure dicks. Suzuki is cool because he's batshit crazy, but Zack is a dick. Tai Chi is a dick. Desperado, like all of them, they're just like dicks. They're good wrestlers, but they're all dicks. And they're a cool tag team for a while. Zack Sabre is kind of like the number 2 in that group, and he follows along in the Suzuki footsteps of like technical stuff, dickhead moves, prick moves, dirty stuff, but all about like submissions and technical style. So he fits into that group, and that's how they all kind of mesh together. But yeah, I don't know what Suzuki sees in Tai Chi. Suzuki's all about beating the shit out of people and being tough, and Tai Chi's out here wearing masks and tearaway pants and miming and fake singing to stuff. It's weird.
But enjoyable.
But enjoyable.
But enjoyable.
You know what's funny? Watching that, I didn't know what matches you had watched, and I wanted to like keep it as a surprise. When I was watching Tai Chi versus Tana, and I saw Tai Chi come out, in my head I was like, I wonder if this is one of the ones he watched, and I wonder if he was like, what the fuck is going on?
And I was, because I saw Tanahashi's entrance with he had the awesome fucking ring gear. He has a decent little theme. I was just like, oh, standard entrance, quite like this. And then he comes out with this fucking microphone and he's miming this terrible theme song. I was just like, who the fuck is this
going
dick?
on? It was fucking mad. Yeah, exactly. What the fuck is this dick? He's actually, and there's cool like storyline with him that they started to go through in the G1 last year. Like Tai Chi is a really, like the story with him is he's like a really good wrestler and the fans know it. But he just like, rather than go that route, he turned into like a piece of shit and has always tried to take the easy way out and cheats and tries to like do underhanded shit to win. But if he like really forces himself, he had a moment last year in the G1 where, I forgot who he was fighting. Actually, it might have been Tana, and he got the win, but he was going to use the mic when the referee was down and the crowd started like booing, and he stopped and like looked at the crowd and like he threw the mic stand away, and the story was like he wants to show everyone as like a fuck you to everyone that I can beat him without having to cheat, and he did. And then of course the next match he went back to doing dickhead shit because he doesn't give a fuck about what anybody thinks. But that again, that's like the character driven thing, and it adds so much layers to someone's character, because you might just see him and think like, oh, here's some weird fucking lip singing guy who I guess is kind of good, but he like cheats, but there's so much to it. And the more you watch, the more you'll be rewarded. And it's such a good time.
And
I'm so excited.
Such a good time. That little quote there is essentially my New Japan experience so far. It's been really good. It's been really good. And I imagine as this New Japan Cup progresses, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, and it's going to get better for you too once the fans come back, like, because it's gonna add. To
I've heard Dominion, maybe they're coming back.
I don't remember the schedule.
It was July. I know they said July.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to start going half capacity or 25% something, and then when they start the G1 is normally in the summer, but I think the G1 this year is in September. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have fans for that. I don't remember what capacity, so you're going to start to see it at some point, which is going to be cool. And then that, again, is going to add to it even more. And even now, you're not even seeing the full, like, complement of roster of everybody on the roster because of COVID and everything that's gone on. Like, you're still not seeing everyone in their full... Like, they've had to reconfigure and figure out the roster. They've had to reconfigure and figure out storylines and what they're going to do and what direction they're going to go in, because they've got so many dudes that can't come to Japan because they're still in England or they're in Mexico or they're in the States. So as things progress and open up, you're going to see the fans come back and you're going to see like their full repertoire and their full roster, and it's going to get even better. And
I am so excited that I've
yes!
I am excited that I've boarded this train a lot more than I was with AEW, which speaks volumes to me. I have a feeling New Japan is going to come up on this pod a lot. So if you listen to this podcast purely for our WWE chat because that's pretty much all I watched, and you had to follow suit with that. I wouldn't say be disappointed because we're still going to talk about WWE, but we've never really, since you came on board especially, we've never really been this is what happened this week. Right. So it's going to be more of the same. We're just expanding things with New Japan because I don't know, maybe listening to me talk about my first thoughts and stuff from a very real, very, very fresh perspective, maybe that'll push whoever's listening to go and do the same. And I honestly can't recommend, especially now with everything that's going on and WWE not quite hitting the heights that it should be hitting. Now is a really good time to just broaden your wrestling fandom. Even if you don't want to pay for New Japan World, they have free matches on there. I think they had Ibushi Prince Devitt on a couple of days ago. I haven't watched it yet, but I will. It's on my list of things to watch amongst fucking hundreds of other matches.
That match is up there. The Gorillas versus Briscoes, the IWGP Tag match from 2016 is up there as a free match. You can also find stuff on YouTube, Daily Motion, different things. Like you can. It's great. In a perfect world, you get New Japan World and you can stay on top of everything, but there are ways to supplement things. And exactly to your point, it's a cool thing. I suggest everybody at least give it a shot in some way, shape, or form. And if you are a WWE watcher or listener or whatever, you know who AJ Styles is at this point. You know who Nakamura are. I actually believe the AJ Nakamura match from Wrestle Kingdom is up on YouTube in its entirety.
Ooh.
Watch it. Just give yourself a taste. And if you don't like it, that's completely fine. But you can look at two wrestlers that you are familiar with and see what they are truly capable of. And if that doesn't excite you or you don't care, that's completely fine. If you watch it and you don't like it, that's fine. But it does not hurt to give yourself a chance to potentially expand your horizons and find more good wrestling. And that's what New Japan is. Again, I went into it the same way. I went into just watching it just to be like, oh, okay. Dude says it's good, I'll give it a chance. And here I am 7 or 8 years later, and it is one of my favorite things in the world. It brings me such tremendous joy. It's what are we using it to describe? Such a good thing? Such a good time?
Such a good time.
Such a good time. It is such a good time. That's what it is.
And I hope I can say the same 8 years down the line that I'm still watching New Japan, and it's up there with the best of what I'm watching as well. I won't be a noob then. It will no longer be coined Noob Japan on this show. If this show is even still around in 8 years' time.
Oh, it will.
Who knows? Who
else is going to run the France wrestling podcast scene if not us?
Nobody. Nobody's worthy.
But I think it's awesome that it truly, like, I've said it multiple times, but I think it's awesome that you have, especially being like indoctrinated to the WWE side of things. Again, it not to make a joke of it or make light of it. It's legitimately tough to go from seeing like something you are completely used to and then seeing something else that's supposed to be the same thing, but it's different. Again, you're not going to get the theatrics and the presentation that you get in WWE. You're not going to get that with New Japan. It's a different type of presentation. It's a different medium. It's a different landscape. It's a different style. So it can be jarring to people. It can be different, but you legitimately have gone in with like an open mind and have wanted to seek it out, and you just went into it with no bias whatsoever. You weren't like, I'm gonna love it or I'm gonna hate it. You just went into it being like, people keep talking about how cool this thing is, and I like cool stuff and I like wrestling, so I'm gonna check it out and see what happens. And I think that's such a great way, not just for wrestling but in anything. Like it's nice and refreshing to see. We keep saying refreshing and how you feel about New Japan, but for me it's refreshing to see a person go into something with no prejudice and no prejudgment and no bias, just going into something with an honest, open, clear eyes and clear mindset to be like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, we'll see what happens. And granted, I think it's awesome that you like it, but I think it's just even better that you went into it just with a fresh set of eyes, just being like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. You didn't go into it with any bias or any bullshit, and that can be easy to do. Like, it's easy for people to be like, no, I only like WWE, and then watch for something and look for the mistakes or look for the holes, or same vice versa. It's easy for people who like New Japan to turn on SmackDown for 2 minutes and be like, see, WWE sucks, it's done, blah, blah, blah. It's easy to go into things with bias or prejudice, and you did not do that at all. And I think that's extremely commendable and admirable.
And rare these days.
Rare.
Very,
yes,
especially if you are on social media on a Wednesday night, God help you.
Oh my God.
I just don't understand why. I don't understand why things are so toxic. If you like something, you like something. If you don't, you don't.
What's coming up on next week on NXT? It's going to be EO and Sasha Banks, right?
Yes.
And I'm seeing people come out and like, fucking NXT. Look at them trying to fuck with AEW by scheduling this match. Yeah, NXT is a bunch of pricks because they're trying to make their product better than the competitor they're going against. And also, so first of all, that's just business 101. Second of all, shut the fuck up. You're getting more good wrestling. Why are you upset?
And
You got another. AEW has made another wrestling company want to do better. You win. You get more good wrestling. Shut the fuck up and watch good wrestling. Christ.
And even if you pick between the two on the Wednesday night, you can watch the next thing on Thursday. It's not the mid to late 90s anymore where you watch one and maybe you can take the other. Like, you have access to these things now. It's not a problem. Technology is where it is. We can watch NXT live on a Wednesday night and then catch up on AEW on Fight TV the day after, or vice versa. It doesn't fucking matter. It's
so easy.
I just don't. I don't understand people. It's just so toxic, and it just feeds into the shitstorm that is 2020 in wrestling. It really does. But I mean, is the New Japan Cup continuing in the next couple of days?
I believe the next date is July 1st.
Oh, so that's Wednesday. Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
July 1st, and then it ends on July 11th. I believe is the final.
Ooh,
if I'm correct.
So we've got plenty of good stuff to look forward to. So, I mean, I guess it's safe to say next week we will be talking about New Japan again, and maybe we'll go in depth.
Yes!
Maybe we'll go in depth with the New Japan Cup this time, because I do intend to watch all of it. I go back to work the following week, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I can get up in the morning and just watch.
Oh, do it! I binged a lot of it yesterday and today. I went back to work this week. I've been working from home. Yeah, well, you and I have both been working home for a very, very long time. But yeah, I went back to that regular world this week, and it sucks. I miss my house.
Yeah, I have all of that to come, which is sucky, but I'll get used to it. After
it is not
3
such
months.
a good time.
It's definitely not such a good time, not at all. Unless I watch New Japan on my lunch, so.
You could do that.
I can break it up a little
or
bit.
Or just watch it while you're supposed to be working, you know?
It's not. It wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time I watch wrestling when I should be working.
Why not? Fuck it.
Screw it.
The world's going to shit anyway. Fuck it.
But yeah, I would expect some more Noob Japan talk next week. I'm always going to emphasize the noob.
It's so clever. It's so funny. It's
so obvious.
It's so obvious. It's like low hanging fruit, but it's still clever. Or it's like so stupid that it's funny. I love it.
But yeah, so I mean, to summarize, New Japan is great. So
yes,
there we go. Now, before we do go, of course, let's get some plugs out of the way. Anthony, you have your ready-made plug, which always seems to be the same every single week. So go ahead.
Yeah, which is fun. I always try to make. I think I've said it so much; it's just natural rhythm. And now that I've said it, I'm probably gonna fuck it up or do it in a different order than I normally do. But I am Anthony, co-host here on the DOWPOD every single fucking week, and I also have my own solo podcast titled Wagons and Warpaths. It is a weekly Buffalo sports talk podcast, mainly focusing on the Buffalo Bills and or the Buffalo Sabres. Find me on Twitter at Wagons_Warpaths. In the episode link tree in the Twitter bio, you can find all the links to all the episodes ever made by this pod, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. In the podcast show notes on every streaming platform, you can find the podcast email address, which is wagonsandwarpaths@gmail.com. Give me a follow on Twitter. Give me a like on Twitter. Give me some genuine engagement and or your firstborn child or signing a blood oath to pledge your fidelity and allegiance to me, pretty much any standard basic level Twitter things. And if that doesn't float your boat and you listen to this pod, you're unfortunately stuck with me because I think I'm here every week unless I get kicked off the ship.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep you for a few more weeks.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You're on a trial run still.
Yeah. Oh.
Now, that trial run ended like before you were even on the fucking show, to be fair. You can find me on Twitter at Dits on Wrestling. Of course, you are listening to this podcast right now anyway, so I'm not going to hammer up where you can find us because you've already found us. Go and check out my YouTube channel, Dits on YouTube. I do a lot of wrestling. All my podcasts go on there, especially, and then we get like extra wrestling stuff on there and gaming stuff on there as well. And I go live on YouTube this week for the first time ever, properly live, not just it's a premiere on YouTube live, properly live, talking about night 1 of the Great American Bash in NXT. So after NXT finishes on Wednesday night, I will be live on YouTube, so come and join me for that. But apart from that, if you're not watching New Japan, go and watch it.
Do it.
Do it.
It's such a good time.
It is. Generally, it is a good time. I know we always joke around and all that kind of stuff, but it generally is a great time.
Fantastic.
Go do it. But so prepare yourself for more New Japan talk next week. But apart from that, enjoy your week, guys. I hope that we can actually make it a whole week without any bullshit coming up, but that's a tall order these days. But fingers crossed. Anthony, thank you very much, of course, for coming on again and sharing in the New Japan love. And I will see you all next week on the DOWPOD.